Tattoos are the topic for today. Whether or not you should be inked up. Christians, more specifically, should they get tattoos?
Whether or not you should be inked up?
Should you?
Like, it's a moral imperative.
Is
you're inked up.
I always get stuck in these conversations.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
I did a whole talk over in South Africa on something on a completely different topic, but during the Q&A, you know, they couldn't get past my tattoos, and so they were asking questions. You know, especially the young people are asking questions about tattoos, and everyone always goes back to
that one scripture,
one text.
Did I have bookmarked the one text, by the way?
The one text. Yeah.
You said verse 28.
Yeah, verse 28 of Leviticus 19.
You shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor print any marks upon you. I am the Lord.
Yeah, so that translation, it said markings. Yeah, that'll be more close to the accurate translation, because you've got other translations that uses specifically the word tattooing, which is kind of funny because the word tattooing has only been in the English language for the last 200 years, 300 years. The word comes from the Polynesian word tatau. That's where the word tattoo comes from. But that word there in Leviticus 19, basically there's only one study in the Adventist Biblical Research Institute that has, I think it's Manuel Rodriguez that writes an article on. I think it's a great article that everyone should have, because a lot of churches traditionally think that the Adventist church has a stance on it, you know, and really we don't have a stance on it. It's really, if you look at the research that's done on it, it really goes back to the issue of the heart.
Right. Because
you don't want to get caught in trying to interpret that text, because it's not clear.
Yeah.
Leviticus 19 is about it's about the pathway to holiness.
Yeah.
And it's a call to not look at your neighbors. Your neighbors are doing things that are not holy.
Yeah.
And it starts talking about rituals that they would do in funerals, where they would mark themselves by cutting. So it's more scarification than it is tattooing.
Yeah.
And they're doing it for the intent in the heart. Really is that, you know, it's the worship of the dead. There's many others that have like these pagan traditions, and they start talking about the reasons behind why they do it. And so the word there in the Hebrew is kaka, which means to write something. It's to mark an area. Like back then, if you had arthritis, you would write something right where you had it. Yeah. And so a lot of people back in Europe, I mean, they had like these tattooing in like their knuckles, which showed where they had arthritis and so forth. Others who got markings were Roman soldiers, would, you know, of which you know which military group that they belonged to. They would mark themselves. There was also Scandinavians that would get like ink on their bodies, which was really from the sword. Because the sword was made out of coal. Right. And so whenever they would get scarred up from battle, it was because, you know, it was the swords, or, you know, that would, you know, they could tell whether you were in battle, right? And so it became a sign of manhood, right? It became a sign of manhood. And so anyways, if we as Christians were to take that literally, like as in, you know, the Leviticus 19:28, what about Leviticus 19:27? Yeah. And 27 says, you know, don't cut the edges of your hair.
Yeah, it was almost taking it to the extreme, right?
Yeah. So, so if you were to take 28, why not take 27 as well?
Exactly. Well, in the whole chapter.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in there.
There's a lot, but you know, because everyone that takes that Leviticus 19 seriously should never shave their beard.
I've seen some
I'm cool with that.
You're just gonna have all these guys though that look like the paintings of the philosophers, so they beards all the way down to their
Yeah, and that's what it says. It says that you shouldn't cut your hair and you shouldn't shave your beard, and then straight after that it says you shouldn't, mark the body up. So it's really not a good or strong enough text to support the idea of not being tattooed. We should use rather, if you're looking at something, about the body, 1 Corinthians chapter 6 is one, the body being the temple, which is really about not doing anything to harm the body. As in, we should have respect. Jesus had a body. And so, anything to abuse the body. And the intent also, it doesn't just lay with tattoos. There's people that get tattoos and their intention is really to cause someone else to fall. It's vanity, right? It's not just limited to tattooing. That's also with what you wear, how you dress. Are you dressing intentionally to cause someone else to fall? This is also another topic that people talk about that I don't like getting into, because a lot of this stuff really is not seen. Right. It's in the heart. Yeah. So only God can see.
People look at the outward appearance, but God sees the heart. Exactly.
So people make speculations, but really at the end of the day, it really falls down to that individual and God. Sure. I think if memory serves me correctly, because I've had this conversation so many times, like here in North America, there's like 24% of North Americans have tattoos. And it increased more in the 70s and the 80s. Yeah. Before it was just typically sailors and bikies.
Like Popeye.
Yeah. Sailors and bikies were the ones that were seen as having tattoos. But today you got like all sorts of people, people that you couldn't classify today. People that get tattoos. Yeah. So many people get tattoos for different reasons. Some people get tattoos in memory of a lost one. There was a friend of mine who got his son's handprint. Yeah. On his chest. There's also others who, like a lot of Christians have been getting tattoos of their favorite verse. I know my wife had one on her wrist of her mom when her mom passed. Her mom passed away. Like there are all sorts of reasons why people get them, and I think that the idea that the church had of people having tattoos back in the 70s and the 80s. It's no longer, it's no longer the same. And I think that we shouldn't really be judging people who have them anymore, because all sorts of people get them for all sorts of different reasons.
All sorts of reasons. Yeah. And if we're talking about the heart, it's a very different situation. And I think you mentioned before, like the distinction between moral laws and ceremonial laws as well. Yeah. And that's another distinction, I think, to be made.
Yeah. I guess whenever we talk about, the sin itself. Yeah. When we talk about the definition of sin, people would refer to the moral law because that was the laws that were put inside the Ark of the Covenant, and then the other law, the ceremonial laws, Moses was told to leave them outside. And it's like, why are they left outside if they're not the same, right? If they are equally the same, they should both be inside the Ark of the Covenant. But God says, no, only the moral law. And one commentary puts it this way. He says that the moral law is the only law that's going into the new world.
Right. Yeah. Because it reflects the character of God and it's eternal.
Right. Yeah. When you talk about health, right, that's not a moral law. That's to do with the ceremonial laws. Right. And when you get into that new world, like New Jerusalem, where there will be no death, right? Where the body is no longer the same as the bodies that we have now. So you have these ceremonial laws that keep you from being sick. Yeah. And like New Jerusalem, there is no sickness.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. That law is irrelevant. And so a lot of these ceremonial laws are really health laws. They are outside of, they're good for us in this side of the world. We should take care of our bodies on this side. But the moral law is I guess that's a vertical thing, right? The relationship between you and God, and also with others as well. And that's the sort of thing that we're taking into New Jerusalem.
Yeah, this has been a fun history lesson.
Maybe some of you learned some things. Maybe
hopefully take some notes.
Be thoughtful,
Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Faith Talk.
Check us out on all of our socials. That'll be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and all the above. We also are on YouTube.
And subscribe to all our channels, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, things like that.
And be sure to check out our merch store. It not only supports us, but it helps us bring you higher quality content.
Yeah, and remember, we got a weekly word on Wednesday every week on Get This Wednesday.
And episodes come out first of the month.
Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.
God bless.